This is UMass Hockey.
And O'Hara does something marvelous yet again!
Home to future NHL stars. 5 NCAA tournaments in the last 6 seasons. 2 Frozen Fours. And a national title.
Another shot, they score!
It's NewMass at a whole new level. Now, to get you pumped for all the Minutemen action on the ice, along with Nathan Strauss, here's the voice of the Minuteman, Jay Burnham.
Off the bench, Del Elche to the middle. Del Elche fires, he scores! Game winner! Del Elche!
And that is right. Welcome back to another episode of the NewMass Minute. Coming at you from the podcast Emporium. I'm Jay Burnham, voice of the Minutemen. Who are you?
I'm Nathan Strauss, and I got to say, I'm outdressing Jay by just a little bit right now, but give us about 25 minutes.
All right.
And then we'll be on the same page.
So we're in the middle of crossover season. There's a women's basketball game tonight. There's football tomorrow. There's basketball again on Thursday, and then hockey coming up on Friday on the road at BC, Saturday at home against Boston College. We'll get to that. But
Yeah, a little doubleheader for you Saturday, too.
Oh, yeah, man. Should be fun. But we had a tremendous, wild weekend here at the Mullins Center. Sorry we were off last week for the show. Appreciate everybody subscribing and liking and watching us on YouTube and all the good places. Okay. A win on Saturday, a loss on Friday against Maine. Top-ranked team coming into the Mullins Center. Where do you want to start?
I mean, even weirder, it was a Thursday-Friday series. So, that's one thing that got lost in the shuffle of last week is that because Hoops had a doubleheader Saturday, football was on the road, obviously, early in the week. Everything, there was, I think, almost 2 games per day for a 10-day stretch. And so I lost track of time. We basically lived in the Mullins Center from Thursday through Saturday evening. But I would say let's start with the Thursday game because I like to end on a high note.
All right, so Thursday, you've got Ben Barr, who was a tremendous assistant coach here for 5 years, helped UMass win a national championship, goes to Maine, and he's really kind of rekindled this program. They were a beast last year. They won the Hockey East tournament, went to the NCAAs, and they just steamrolled. 6-2 the final, but it was, and Coach Carve said after the game, there's nothing to take away from this game. It was a tough one to watch on Thursday.
Yeah, I think the most telling quote was Greg Carwell said it was the worst game he's coached at UMass since he got here. And I was talking to Johnny Lazarus after the game, and he said, "Oh, was it really the worst?" I feel like he was obviously he was on that first team, and he said, "I feel like we played some worse games." And I said, "Johnny, I love you, but think about the caliber of players that are in this program now and where it's grown to." And he said, "You know what? That's a fair point." So it was bad. It was really bad.
It's funny. And first of all, Jackson Irving got the start in goal. We found out as we got to the Mullins Center that Michael Robble's dealing with an injury. He's day-to-day. The update today from Coach Carville is he's day-to-day heading into BC, so maybe see him once this weekend, maybe not. We don't know. Talking about Johnny Lazarus, because he was on the broadcast with me on Thursday, and UMass was just giving up shot after shot after shot, a ton of ozone time for Maine. So I started going back through the record books. The last time UMass had allowed 50 shots on net, last time someone had 48 to 50 saves, and they were in the Johnny Lazarus years. And I said, "Man,
2017 down at Princeton.
You guys gave up a lot of shots back then." He said, "Yeah, you betcha."
Well, Johnny, as often as he was in the penalty box, didn't have a huge part to play there. But hey, Johnny Lazarus famously scored the first goal in the Greg Carville era. No one could ever forget that. But you're right. It was, from what I found, it was the worst shot differential in the era that we have stats for UMass
Which
hockey.
goes back how far?
It goes back to around 2000. The College Hockey News database goes back to, I think, 0203. So in at least 20 plus years.
And what was that shot differential? I don't have the numbers in front of me.
UMass got outshot in this game 54-16. So you're looking at 38 was the differential. UMass does not give up over 50 shots that often. UMass doesn't give up over 40 shots that often. The last time they gave up 50 shots was with Ryan Wischow in goal in that game against Princeton back in 2017. Otherwise, it actually hadn't happened in the Greg Carvel era in regulation. So it's a complete anomaly. Maine played really well. Like, don't take anything away from that. They played outstanding. Justin Poirier was really, really good. Really everyone on Maine looked outstanding. And UMass, not only were they outshot in terms of shots on goal, shot attempts were something like 3-1 Maine, but UMass also played so incredibly poorly that it was such a rarity that you're almost thinking like, just flush it and go again the next day.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here, but I think we're allowed to talk about the negative side,
of course,
more so here on State TV, because there's a positive side coming, which was the next night on Friday. Before we get to that, you mentioned Justin Poirier for Maine. He's one of the top freshmen in the country. This series featured the two top scoring first-year players in Václav Nestrasil for UMass and Poirier for Maine. And, Poirier he was tremendous.
Yeah, and again, on the smaller side, right, he's only 5'8", but he was shooting from everywhere. He was chucking it up like Anthony Simons yesterday. I don't know if you've been watching a lot of Boston Celtics this year, Jay, but he was just chucking like
Antoine Walker back in the day.
Antoine Walker is a great comparison. Right. But yeah, he was just shooting from everywhere. And then again, you had another comparable with Jack Musa and Josh Nadeau, both of whom are in their third year, basically point per game players across 80 plus games. And Nadeau ended up with a hat trick on night one, and he kind of found his footing as well. No one aside from Jackson Irving played well on Thursday night. And Jackson Irving, he wins Hockey East Goalie of the Week despite a game in which he gave up 6 goals. Right. And that's a demonstration of the fact that, those weren't cupcake saves either. It could have been, you were looking at a much different scoreline if he wasn't in there and playing the way he did.
And this is a guy, Jackson Irving, who, didn't see the ice for the second half of last year. I think Robble went to play in the World Juniors. Irving filled in when he was gone. He had one shutout last year. I can't remember which game that was.
I think Robert Morris out in Arizona.
And so he gets thrown into the whole thing. And, man, he was under assault in that first period. And this is just one of the things I wanted to bring up to you. I think it was Nadeau had a shorthanded goal for Maine to get things going. It was like 18 of the first minutes in the first period. UMass was almost out of that period without giving up a goal despite that differential.
It was 18-2 or 18-3 when that first goal went in.
And then it was a 1-on-0 breakaway on a shorthanded opportunity. And then that sort of was the break in the dam.
Yeah, and then I think going off of that too, you're down 2-0 in a game that you're being outplayed. You go into that first intermission and you think, okay, maybe there's a chance to kind of reset, make some tweaks, get the team engaged. And then on the first shift of the second period, you take a penalty and it leads to a 5-on-3 that Maine converts and makes it 3-0. And that, we didn't get to see what those adjustments would have been. So
yeah, I just think mentally it's say, hey, can you get, we've been on our heels for the first 20 minutes. Can we just get this to the break? I'm not saying it would have made a difference, but they were close to doing that.
Yeah, and then again, they made it a 3-1 game. It was a 2-goal game for a little bit. But again, Maine just had really good layers. UMass clearly didn't have it mentally. And the good news is, if we segue to Friday,
let's do it.
It was the complete role reversal. So Maine, on the backs of a big win, had a couple of late scratches to their lineup. They were dealing with, I think, a little bit of illness, but doesn't take anything away from what UMass did, because if that's the worst loss of the Greg Carvel era, in his own words, as far as the mentality and the compete, they came out and basically did unto Maine what Maine had done unto them the previous day. The shot net totals weren't as skewed as they were previously, but as far as the shift, the momentum of the game, it really felt like from start to finish, UMass had it in their grasp.
That's an old adage, right? Do unto Maine as they do unto others.
That's a little biblical. Okay. I think it's the 11th commandment, actually.
Okay, so 4-0 is the final in the second game. And actually, Coach Carv said in the weekly press conference today, he said after that game, and I think heading into the second game, he really had to challenge his team. And there's only so many times you can do that as a head coach before it just falls on deaf ears. And he said, if they don't rise to the occasion here for this second game, it could be a long season. And man, they really showed up.
Yeah, I thought the players challenged themselves too. Like, I think when you have a turnaround like that, it can't just be from the coaches. And before the game Friday, Greg Carvel said, I asked him who he wanted to drag them forward. Think about guys like Lucas Mercury, who in tough times for the team could kind of by will alone drag the team forward. And he said, it's got to be Jack Musa, it's got to be Nick Van Tassel, and it's got to be our two captains, Lucas Olvestad and Owen Murray. Jack Musa had one of his best games at UMass. I know he only had 1 point, but he was a man possessed. And then you got a goal from Nick Van Tassel the previous night. You got really good play from that top D pair, and they set the tone. And again, they drew some penalties. Aside from one call against UMass that didn't go their way, it was a pretty
You're
clean
talking about
game.
a phantom tripping
call. And if anyone wants the clip,
you've got it. Put it on Twitter.
I pride myself on being fairly objective when it comes to referees. I actually really like the referees we have in Hockey East. But anyways, aside from that call, UMass was really in
that
control.
call came after UMass was up 3-0, so you felt a little bit better about it. But you get 2 power play goals. Jenshko has seemed to really set up shop on that kind of right side of the power play. Right side of the power play. And Del Elche gets the scoring going. Ovalstad gets his first goal there. But for UMass, look at now, power play goals, 11 of 40. I mean, that's tracking past where they were last year, and they were one of the best in the nation in that regard.
Yeah, and the thing is, UMass doesn't get a ton of power play opportunities. Like Friday was an anomaly, but because UMass is amongst the most disciplined teams in the country.
One of Maine's weaknesses is they put guys in the box.
They came in, I think, the second to least disciplined team in Hockey East, and they're in the bottom 10 in the country right now, and I think they'll clean that up. But UMass got a number of power play opportunities on Friday, including a 5-on-3. UMass had put other teams on the 5-on-3 in 3 of their previous 4 games. So I think it was a nice little role reversal, and there's just too much talent and hockey IQ to not convert on a lot of those opportunities.
So when you net at the end of it, you've split against a top 10 team. But fortunately, you got both those games in your building, and now you have to set your sights on Boston College. We'll get to that in a second. But what does this weekend mean for Jackson Irving?
It's great. I mean, look, Jackson Irving, to give a brief story about who he is, his freshman year, he comes in with Michael Probel. He knows he's going to be likely the third string goalie that year. We're doing player media one day on a Tuesday, and he walks off the ice, as all the players come off the ice after practice, and goes, "Oh, doesn't anyone want to interview me?" Like totally joking. And I said, "Yeah, let's do it right now." So we had this great interview, this great talk. I learned all about, his family, obviously being a goalie runs in the family there, and just incredible energy and incredible poise. And he worked so hard that freshman year and the following summer that he ends up being the number 2 last year, again, with Michael Probel ahead of him. And he gets some pretty good game time. When Probel struggled early in the year, Irving stepped in, held Providence to 2 goals, again, played pretty well against UVM. And then when Probel was out at World Juniors, he played really well there as well. So, he's the kind of guy who will be a 4-year player here at UMass. I think, when Probel signs after this year, it's Irving's net to go into next year, depending on who they bring in. So super happy for him. The guys love him too. And again, he was so dialed in, and also very happy that he won his 2nd Hockey East Goalie of the Week award.
That's wild for a guy that has only played a handful of games in his career. He's won that award twice. I'd say, you'd hope that seeing so many shots too over the course of the weekend, and if he will be in net this weekend, again, TBD, that only is going to help him each time he's able to take the ice. And you can't expect a shutout, but still, a tremendous effort for him.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back too to his college debut. He played the last 10 minutes of that 11-1 game against Alaska a few years ago. But Carvel put him in as UMass had to kill a 5-on-3. And I think for a goalie, you're right. Maybe in the first action in a little while, you want to see some shots. I don't think you want to see, 90 shots, which Irving did this weekend. But yeah, very happy for him. And also, again, we've seen some goalie tandems in the past for UMass, like Philly Lindbergh and Matt Murray, that have been really successful. It's a little different here because you have kind of a unicorn goalie prospect in 6'7" Michael Probel, one of the highest drafted players in program history. But it's really reassuring to know that if Probel gets banged up or if he needs a night, you're in good hands.
Doesn't need to go back-to-back every weekend.
Right, although I think he probably wants to.
Probably.
Yeah, so very happy. Point is, very happy for Jackson.
So now you take on BC. UMass will be on the road Friday. I think that's a Nesson game of the week, right?
Yeah, 7 o'clock, 7:05 puck drop from Connie.
You guys will be down there, you and Donnie, and then they play at home against Boston College. So this BC team came out, bunch of draft picks, as you might expect, some big names that returned from a year ago. They just swept Vermont. That was 2-1 on Friday, and then 4-0 on Saturday. So they had a little breathing, maybe 5-0 on Saturday. So they had some breathing room there, but maybe not as great of a start to the BC season as they would have hoped. I think they're hanging on to the top 20. They're now 18th in the country. Your thoughts on the Eagles?
It all comes down to goaltending. I mean, I think coming into this year, I had BC, I think 5th in my preseason poll. And the big reason is that for the last 3 years, they had Cutter Gauthier and then Cutter Gauthier and Ryan Leonard. And also they had Jacob Fowler, who was the best goalie in the country for each of the last 2 seasons. And I think no matter how good a team you are, when you lose a goalie who's like a 940 goalie, like he's a goalie who was the best goalie in college hockey each of the last 2 years, in my mind. That's a big gap to fill. And in addition to that, you also lose a Hobie Baker caliber guy. Each of the last 3 years, they've had that from the first and second year of Gauthier to the first and second year of Ryan Leonard. So James Hagens obviously returns. He's looked really good. Bruins first rounder this last year. Dean Latorno, who was a Bruins first rounder the previous year, has shown a lot of flashes this year, and he's 6'7".
He's big, yeah.
And he's 6'7" and has been, playing quite well. But also, they lost Gabe Perreault a little while back. They lost Oscar Jelvik due to injury, and that's a huge loss for them. So the big question for them was always going to be goaltending and scoring, especially secondary scoring, and they haven't really done that yet. They brought in Luca Cloutier, who they flipped from Northeastern. He's had an up and down start. Yeah, and Koretz as well has been up and down. He was the backup to Fowler the last couple of years. So they obviously have talent. They've got guys like Sondrial. They've got guys like Teddy Stiga, who was the best player on the ice in the second game when these two teams played last year.
And they split last year.
UMass won at Connie Forum and then lost the return game here. But look, BC has enough talent, but no BC fan is happy with how their season has gone so far. And they are, I think, like every other team in Hockey East, just about capable of doing really good things. Unfortunately for them, they just haven't showed that all too much so far.
Well, they'll show up for this matchup for sure.
Yeah, and teddy bear toss on Saturday, Jay. You got your bear.
Bring your bear, throw him on the ice. Yeah, I'll have to go hit the store.
You don't own a pile of teddy bears. I think you're not surprised.
'Tis the season. All right, so you just reeled off their entire roster. Appreciate you doing that. If you're a Bruins fan, this is where you want to be. You got 3 Bruins draft picks. Overall Hockey East thoughts after the first couple of weeks here. Northeastern continues to be kind of one of the top dogs. Yeah,
Northeastern continues to be one of the top dogs, but they swept BC and they beat UMass. They've only played 3 games so far in Hockey East play, and then they kind of limped to 2 wins against Stonehill. Stonehill, by the way, who are the best 1-win team that I've ever seen. And again, Northeastern has gotten outstanding goaltending from Lawton Zacher. They look legit. The problem is right now, there's basically the top 8 and then the next 3. And any of those top 8 teams could beat any of the other teams on any given night. But, with 0 exceptions, there has not been a team that's separated yet. BU, obviously, they're without Cole Iserman. UConn and Providence, very similar teams. UMass and Maine just split. Maine lost to Colgate earlier this year. Northeastern, they lost to Army earlier this year. And while they are now on a 6-game heater, it's a little different, with the quality of competition that they've played so far. So my answer is it's really murky right now. And I think that's reflected in the national rankings. You've got 6 teams between 8 and 18 in Hockey East, but no team in the top 6, no team in the top 5. So,
a little different than
but it's still way too early to tell which teams are truly legit and which aren't, because UMass could beat any team in the country the way they played Friday, but they could also lose to any team the way they played Thursday.
Yeah. So how do you replicate that? And one of the other components, and Coach Carr was talking about this today. He knows, and he was listing off things that they need to do better, right? I think he took a question someone had asked that maybe had a little negative spin. He's like, well, when you do this better, when you do this better, you need to be better on faceoffs. Justin Kerr has solidified himself as a guy, in the bottom 6 for UMass, and he's been one of the better, face-off winners for the Minutemen. So that's been kind of a nice little tweak for UMass, that maybe not a panacea, but a nice little stopgap to say, hey, at least we've got this guy has been able to hold his own and be above 50% of the face-off dot.
Yeah, I mean, Kerr's been an animal. I think he's at 66% on the year, which is the best on the team. But you also got, Jack Galanik, who won 18 of 35, I think, on Friday night. It's no surprise that the games that you win, you tend to have better peripheral stats. So he's been a great addition. He's been a menace, and looking forward to seeing more from him. Still looking for that first goal, but you get the sense that it's probably not that far away.
Yeah, he's really helped set up goals. It just hasn't come for him, but you know it will. Speaking of goals, Nick Van Tassel gets his first. He's the guy that we had the captains in here at the beginning of the season. They were saying, look, he's gonna be ready for a big year. Maybe just the one goal, but when I'm watching a game, I'm seeing him out there. I'm seeing him lay hits. I'm seeing him set up opponents, set up teammates. I'm seeing him, get a stick in there on opponents. Like, he's been everywhere on the ice, and I think you're starting to see that kind of pay dividends.
Yeah, and he's hit the most posts of anyone on the team as well.
You keep track of that?
Yeah, I do in my own head. But also you can track in the post-game box scores. It shows you what shots hit the post, which is kind of cool. In addition to like saves on target, etc. But I mean, he's been playing really, really well. There were a bunch of games where he was the best player on the ice, and he finally got that first goal, I think, on Thursday, which should kind of free him up. I know Greg Carvel said that he wants him to shoot more, and that's the next step. But the goals are absolutely coming, and I think it's proof that he's put in the work, and happy that he's finally seeing it pay off.
Anything else?
Just get ready for BC on the 14th and 15th, and come out to the Mullen Center, bring a teddy bear.
Teddy bear toss.
Yeah, bring some canned food. There's a food drive going on as well. So should be great. And also, shout out to our guy, Dylan Shalom, who has been helping us out on the radio side this year, was engineering his first game as a solo board op in our WHMP studios when his apartment burned down, the Olympia Place fire. He not only did a fantastic job, like one of the best broadcasts we've had, but then he's also, trying to rebuild as along with the other 200 students who lost their place. So just wanted to give a big shout out to Big D. Killed it on the boards and got a bright future, as he knows.
Without a doubt. And of course, we're pulling for everybody that has suffered through the fire. And I think we got multiple fundraisers going on. So you could check out the website for that information. Any last thoughts?
Nothing much.
You're good.
Jay. You ready to go change into a suit?
All right. So we got women's basketball coming up. We got football tomorrow while we record this. Hopefully we'll get this out today, Tuesday, late in the afternoon. We will see you for the teddy bear toss on Saturday inside the Mullen Center. He's Nate. I'm Jay. Until next time from Amherst.